January 9, 2007. The Macworld Conference in San Francisco. A hush falls over the packed auditorium as Steve Jobs steps onto the stage. The anticipation is palpable. Rumors of a groundbreaking new device have been swirling for months. But instead of unveiling a revolutionary touchscreen communicator, Jobs introduces an updated line of iPods and Macs. The expected one more thing never materializes. He simply smiles, thanks the audience, and exits stage left. The world, unknowingly, has just diverged onto an entirely different path. In the immediate aftermath, the status quo held firm. Research in Motion's BlackBerry devices, with their iconic physical QWERTY keyboards and secure email capabilities, continued their undisputed dominance in the business world. For professionals like Sarah Chan, a marketing executive in New York, her BlackBerry Curve was an indispensable tool, a symbol of productivity and constant connectivity. It was reliable, familiar, and above all, practical. The idea of a phone without a keyboard felt almost absurd to many, a novelty destined for niche markets. Meanwhile, in the consumer market, Nokia remained the undisputed king. Their diverse range of feature phones, from the sturdy 3310 to the multimedia-rich N series, offered something for everyone. People valued their long battery life, durability, and straightforward functionality. Browsing the internet on these devices was a clunky affair, largely confined to websites with limited content, but for most, it was sufficient for basic news and weather. The mobile phone was primarily a communication tool, not a portable computer. One of the most profound absences in this alternate timeline is the App Store. Without a unified platform for third-party developers, mobile software remained fragmented and largely under the control of carriers and device manufacturers. If you wanted a new game or utility, you either downloaded it from your carrier's proprietary portal, often at exorbitant prices, or sideloaded it through complex, technical means. This drastically limited innovation and user choice. The vibrant ecosystem of independent developers simply never emerged. Mobile gaming, too, suffered. While games like Snake and Tetris were popular pre-installed options, the lack of a robust app ecosystem meant advanced mobile gaming struggled to take off. Developers lacked standardized tools and a distribution channel that reached millions. Consoles like the Nintendo DS and Sony PSP continued to dominate portable gaming, offering dedicated hardware and rich experiences. The casual gaming phenomenon that swept the world with titles like Angry Birds or Candy Crush remained confined to the imagination. Without the iPhone's influence, the internet remained primarily a desktop experience. Websites were designed for large screens and mouse navigation, making them cumbersome on small mobile displays. People would check emails and browse complex web pages from their home or office computers, not on the go. The concept of mobile-first design, which prioritized responsiveness for smaller screens, never became an industry standard. Public Wi-Fi was scarce, and cellular data was expensive and slow, further cementing the desktop's primacy. Social media in 2007 was a nascent phenomenon, primarily accessed via desktop. MySpace was still huge, Facebook was growing, but neither was inherently mobile. The idea of constantly sharing photos, updating statuses from anywhere, or connecting with friends in real time on a pocket device was a distant dream. Without the iPhone, the explosion of mobile-first social networks like Instagram, Snapchat, and later TikTok simply didn't happen. Our social interactions remain tethered to specific locations and devices, fostering a different kind of daily rhythm. Navigation in 2007 relied on dedicated GPS devices like those from Garmin and TomTom, or, for the truly analog, paper maps. These devices were expensive and often required updates via a computer. The seamless integration of mapping and navigation into a smartphone, something we take for granted today, was unimaginable. If you were lost on the road, you pulled over, consulted a map, or hoped for a clear signal on your standalone GPS. Spontaneous exploration guided by a pocket device was not yet a reality. In this timeline, mobile carriers held immense power. They dictated which phones were sold, what features were enabled, and how much data cost. The walled garden approach meant limited choice and high prices for consumers. Without a device like the iPhone to challenge their authority and demand an open ecosystem, carriers continued to bundle their own services, pre-install their own bloatware, and control the mobile experience. It was a market driven by their interests, not necessarily by consumer demand for innovation. The user interface of mobile phones saw slower, incremental improvements. Physical buttons, joysticks, and resistive touchscreens that required a stylus remained the norm. The intuitive, multi-touch capacitive screen of the iPhone, which radically simplified interaction, never became the benchmark. Designers continued to work within the constraints of physical input, leading to clunky menus and complex button combinations. The seamless swipe and pinch gestures that define modern mobile interaction were absent from the lexicon. As the years rolled from 2007 to 2010, the mobile world didn't stand still, but its evolution was markedly different. BlackBerry refined its business devices, focusing on security and enterprise features. Nokia continued to push its Symbian OS, attempting to add more advanced multimedia capabilities, but still within the paradigm of physical input. Other players like Motorola and Sony Ericsson dabbled with experimental forms and limited touchscreen models, yet no single device captured the public imagination or reshaped expectations. Even without the iPhone, Google's Android still emerged, but its trajectory was altered. Initially designed for devices with physical keyboards and D-pads, Android became an open-source operating system for a fragmented landscape of feature phones and advanced dumb phones. Its focus was on customization and Google Services integration, providing a software layer for hardware manufacturers. However, without the iPhone's multi-touch paradigm, Android's UI development was constrained, lacking the fluid, gesture-driven experience we know. The famous slogan, "There's an app for that," would never enter the global lexicon. Developers, facing a fractured ecosystem of operating systems like Symbian, BlackBerry OS, Windows Mobile, and a nascent Android, found it incredibly difficult to create cross-platform applications. Each platform required specific coding languages, SDKs, and distribution methods. This high barrier to entry meant that only large companies could afford to develop for multiple platforms, stifling the explosion of niche and independent apps. Imagine needing a taxi in 2026. You'd likely be hailing one from the street, calling a dispatcher, or using a dedicated website from your desktop before leaving. The convenience of summoning a ride with a few taps on your phone, tracking its arrival in real time, and paying seamlessly, is absent. Ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft, which were entirely predicated on location services and an app-driven experience, could not exist in this alternate reality. Transportation remained largely traditional, without the disruption of mobile platforms. While phone cameras improved incrementally, they never became the primary photographic tool for the masses. Without the instant sharing capabilities of mobile-first social media and the seamless integration of image editing apps, dedicated digital cameras, especially point-and-shoots, remained popular. People would take photos on their Canon or Nikon, transfer them to a computer, and then perhaps upload them to Flickr or print them out. The cultural shift towards constant photographic documentation and instant visual communication never occurred. In the mid-2010s, communication evolved, but not in the way we recognize. Instant messaging services like WhatsApp and WeChat, while they might exist in some form, would be heavily reliant on desktop access or carrier-specific walled gardens. The ease of group chats, video calls, and sending rich media across platforms on the go was not universal. People would schedule calls, rely on SMS for quick messages, and use email for more extensive communication. The constant digital hum of modern connectivity was significantly quieter. Mobile banking applications, while existing in basic forms, would lack the sophistication and widespread adoption seen today. Paying with your phone via NFC or QR codes would be a niche, almost futuristic concept. Physical credit cards and cash would remain the dominant forms of transaction. The burgeoning fintech industry, heavily reliant on mobile platforms, would be severely stunted. This means longer queues at banks, more physical wallets, and a slower, less integrated financial world. For businesses, the shift in technology meant a continued reliance on enterprise-specific hardware and software. Companies would invest heavily in ruggedized devices, specialized terminals, and custom-built applications for their operations. The concept of employees using their own smartphones for work-related tasks, or accessing cloud services from a personal device, would be far less prevalent. IT departments would maintain tighter control over corporate devices, and the bring-your-own-device (BYOD) trend would be minimal. The pervasive always-on culture of notifications, updates, and constant connectivity would be noticeably absent. People would check their phones less frequently, often only when expecting a call or message. There would be more intentional engagement with devices rather than habitual glances. This might lead to a different psychological landscape, perhaps less anxiety about missing out, but also less spontaneous information access. Our attention spans, arguably, would be less fragmented without the constant pull of the pocket computer. Fast forward to 2026. The mobile landscape is dominated by sophisticated feature phones and advanced BlackBerry-style communicators. These devices boast high-resolution screens, improved cameras, and powerful processors, yet they retain physical keyboards, directional pads, or refined button arrays. Their operating systems are highly optimized for these input methods, offering swift navigation and impressive battery life. The tactile satisfaction of a physical click remains paramount, a comfort in a world without glass slabs. By 2026, carrier-controlled ecosystems have matured significantly. Each major carrier offers its own curated app store, often with exclusive content and services. While still fragmented, these stores are more robust than their 2007 counterparts, featuring a wider array of games and utilities. However, interoperability between different carrier stores remains a challenge, and developers still face the hurdle of porting applications for multiple ecosystems. Your mobile experience is still largely dictated by your network provider. The Internet of 2026 in this world is still robust, but accessed primarily through laptops, desktops, and perhaps specialized tablets with physical keyboards. Mobile websites exist, but they are often simplified versions of their desktop counterparts, optimized for navigation via D-pads or limited touch input. True mobile-first design, with its emphasis on touch gestures and responsive layouts, never became the default. Many rich experiences remain tethered to larger screens, meaning less spontaneous, on-the-go browsing. Facebook, LinkedIn, and perhaps new desktop-first social networks would still thrive in 2026, but their mobile presence would be fundamentally different. Rather than constant updates and photo sharing from anywhere, mobile interactions would be more about checking notifications or sending quick, text-based messages. Video calls might be common, but typically initiated from a computer with a webcam. The vibrant, ephemeral, visual culture that exploded with Instagram and TikTok never materializes, shaping a different form of digital interaction. Dedicated GPS devices would continue their evolution, now offering advanced 3D mapping, real-time traffic updates, and integration with vehicle infotainment systems. While more sophisticated, they remain separate from your communication device. For pedestrians, a printout from a mapping website or a compact, purpose-built navigation gadget would be the norm. The ubiquitous phone as navigator, seamlessly guiding you through unknown streets, is a luxury not afforded to this timeline's citizens. Portable gaming in 2026 would still be dominated by dedicated handheld consoles. Nintendo would likely have iterated on its DS line, perhaps with more advanced graphics and online capabilities. Sony might still offer its own portable gaming platform. Mobile games on button phones would be more akin to highly polished versions of classic arcade titles or puzzle games, designed for button input. The vast, free-to-play mobile gaming market, rich with microtransactions, would be almost non-existent. Music on the go would still primarily be handled by dedicated MP3 players like advanced iPods or Zunes, or by loading music onto feature phones with expandable memory. Streaming services would exist, but largely through desktop browsers or specialized applications on more capable, often larger, devices. The concept of a single device housing your entire music library and streaming capabilities, all accessible with a tap, would be less common, leading to a more intentional, curated listening experience. Imagine public transport, ticketing, and information systems. Without the smartphone revolution, these systems would remain largely physical. Ticket machines, printed schedules, and information booths would be commonplace. QR code scanning or NFC payments for transit, parking, or public services would be rare or non-existent. Urban environments would feel less digitally integrated, relying more on tangible interfaces and human interaction for navigation and service access. The boundaries between work and personal life might be clearer. Without the expectation of constant email checking or document editing on a mobile device, logging off at the end of the day might be more definitive. Professionals would still be connected, but perhaps through pagers for urgent matters or dedicated work devices that remain at the office. This could foster a different psychological rhythm, less blurred lines between personal time and professional demands, but also less flexibility. For developers and innovators, this world presents a significant dilemma. Without a unified, accessible platform like the App Store, the barriers to entry for new ideas are much higher. A brilliant app concept might struggle to find distribution across a multitude of carrier-specific stores and operating systems. The garage startup culture that blossomed around mobile apps would be greatly diminished, limiting the speed and scale of digital innovation. Consider the lack of ubiquitous visual documentation. Our personal histories, news cycles, and cultural moments would be captured differently. Less spontaneous video, fewer candid photos shared instantly. Events might be recorded by dedicated news crews or enthusiastic hobbyists with cameras, but the collective, citizen journalism aspect of the smartphone era would be absent. This creates a different kind of public record, perhaps more curated, but certainly less immediate and comprehensive. Mobile data speeds would likely have improved, but without the demand generated by rich media, streaming, and app usage, the urgency for blazing fast 5G might not have been as intense. We might be operating on highly optimized 4G networks as the standard, with less emphasis on cutting-edge cellular technology. The bandwidth demands of a button-centric world are inherently lower, allowing infrastructure development to proceed at a more conservative pace. In this timeline, conversations around data privacy might be fundamentally different. Without the constant tracking by mobile apps and location services, the scale of personal data collection would be smaller. Concerns might revolve more around carrier data retention or desktop browsing habits, rather than the intricate web of mobile behavioral analytics. While privacy concerns would still exist, their scope and focus would be shaped by a less always-on, less sensor-rich mobile ecosystem. Mobile device design would be a testament to the craft of physical engineering. Phones would be lauded for their ergonomic keyboards, satisfying click mechanisms, and robust build quality. Brands would compete on the elegance of their button layouts, the tactile feedback of their materials, and the efficiency of their menu navigation via physical input. It's a world where the phone is a beautifully engineered tool, rather than a blank canvas for digital interaction. The global economy would look different too. The trillion-dollar app economy, encompassing everything from mobile gaming to delivery services, would be severely diminished. Instead, investment might flow more into dedicated hardware, specialized enterprise solutions, and desktop software. The rise of developing nations through affordable smartphones and mobile-first internet would be a slower, more arduous journey, potentially widening the digital divide rather than narrowing it. Looking at this alternate 2026, it's clear the absence of the iPhone didn't stop technological progress entirely, but it certainly redirected it. The world still moves forward, but with a different pace, different priorities, and different daily rituals. We might have retained more tactile connections to our devices, perhaps even to each other, but at the cost of the instantaneous, interconnected, app-driven world that now defines our reality. The iPhone wasn't just a phone, it was a catalyst for a global paradigm shift.